Buenos dias or buenas tardes, whatever time it is you're watching this. I'm going to make a brief introduction for those of you who are wanting to go ahead or who don't remember what it is that you were trying to figure out in this unit. This is section 1, unit 1, where we're going to learn how to form basic sentences. So this is the very first one that we'll learn on Duolingo. In order to help you with this, I'm going to talk about grammatical gender and what that means in Spanish, and then another new word, verb conjugation. Okay, so first off, everything in Spanish, which is very different from English, has a grammatical gender. And there's two of them. There's masculine and feminine. What that means is that all of the words that share a similar characteristic to words like boys and men, we call masculine. And all of the words that share similar characteristics to the words woman or girl, for example, we call feminine. And the reason this is important is because a lot of stuff changes based on if a word is masculine or if it's feminine. For example, what we're going to talk about today, the word el, which means the, is the masculine way to say the for words that are masculine. But if a word is feminine, you say la. And you can pause the video and look at these examples, but that's the basics of what you need to know. And then for all masculine words that we would say el for the, when we want to say like a man, we use the word un hombre. And you might be like, that sounds kind of like uno. Yeah, that's because it actually means one man as well. Okay, and all the words that we would use la for, like woman or milk or apple, if we want to say an apple or a woman, we would say una. Look at this chart to kind of get an idea of basic grammatical gender. I also want to talk about what is called verb conjugation. And the best way that I know to explain this is that in English, we have the verb that means to be. But it's different depending on who the person is being. So for example, when I say I be, we say I am. When we say that you are being, we say you are. So I am, you are. And when we say that somebody else is doing that, then we say is. So am, are, is. And conjugation in very basic terms is just verbs in Spanish and in many other languages that are very popular will change depending on who is doing the action. And so our verbs will reflect who is doing the action, if it's I am doing it or you are doing it or somebody else is doing it. And so that's why I'm going over this, because it's probably the hardest thing for English speakers to master. But once you do, Spanish gets a lot easier. I also want you to kind of look at all these verbs and look at how they're very, very similar. If I am doing something, it kind of tends to end in an O in the present tense. There's an OY, but it's still an O. If you are doing something, it's going to end in S. Say, hey, you are, you eat, you drink. Well, all those verbs, those actions are going to end in an S. And then if somebody else is doing something, it's going to end in E. We're going to learn that it also can end in A. Now there's one very rare example, and that is the verb is S. And that's the only time that you'll see a verb in the third person end in an S in the whole language. But it's a very common verb, so it's got to be there still, and we got to learn it. So before you guys freak out, there's a pattern to all of this. And the sooner you figure out the pattern, the easier this is going to be. If you try to memorize these individually as a new vocab word for every single verb conjugation, it's going to seem almost impossible until you learn that it's a pattern. So to give you an example, because you actually don't need a subject pronoun before it, like instead of saying I am, you can just say am in Spanish, and it means I am already. So here's an example with the verb to eat. Rafael como pan, Rafael, I eat bread. And the part that means that I am doing it is the O at the end. The second example says Rafael comes pan, and that's Rafael, you eat bread. Well, how do we know that it's you eat and not I eat or he eats? Because of the ending ES. That part indicates you are eating it. And the last one says Rafael come pan. And this one we're talking about Rafael. And the thing that indicates that is the ending E. And that's all you need to know for now. Those two things, basic grammatical gender and basics of verb conjugation. Okay, nos vemos. See you next time.